Dun, 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 dun. Alahoyas. How are you? How's it going? Good morning. I'm surprised I can stay up this late. The jet lag was real. Can you guys hear me? Can't hear if I'm turned up loud. How's it going? Glad to be here. What's going on? Shit, it's too fun. What's going on? We're back. We are back. I don't even know how to work anything anymore. Sometimes you just gotta remember stuff. Sometimes you can't remember stuff. And that's what we're here to talk about. Oh, let me do one thing. Uno momento, por favor. Here we are. Alright, what's going on? Somebody's requested. Somebody else requested. Who's this character? Who's Namgorf? Let's see. Let's see what's going on. We have a Robot Doom with us tonight. Welcome back, everybody. I don't know what's going on. Here we go. Oh, Namgorf is Robot Doom. They're the same person. Well, we're gonna make it happen. Hello, everybody. What's up?
Howdy.
Whoa. How's it going? I think you're a little loud. Maybe I'm a little.
Am I?
Yeah, you're a little hot.
Sorry.
Mic.
I can move the mic away. There.
That's good. There you go.
I got the power. I'm projecting. Sorry.
That's okay. I'm going to turn mine down a little bit. But there we go. Can you hear me good?
Yes, I can hear you.
How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Long time no see. How you been doing there?
Been doing all right, man. Moved out here to Vegas like a year ago, actually, and it's been pretty cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a desert. It's no longer a swamp like I was in Houston, but I like it, man. It's cool.
Right on. Well, why don't you tell everyone who you are, and
Sure.
And we'll get going with it.
I'm Chuck Bird. My Instagram handle is robotdoom. I'm a technology nerd. One of my hobbies is 3D printing. And so if you check out Robot Doom, you'll see some of my 3D prints and some of the paints that models that I painted. I got some on display behind me. You can see my 3D printer over there. And it's actually kind of a weird new hobby for me because I actually got into 3D printing way back in like 2009 when it was first when like they first started to become affordable. That's when like there was a major patent that expired and like a bunch of people jumped on and started creating 3D printers that were like, no longer $10,000 or whatever. They were actually like, just $1,000.
Sure.
So, which surprisingly, like one of the things that the technology hasn't really like changed too much in the last like 10 years. It's been basically like what they've done is they've kind of kept the resolution about the same for the commercial or for the consumer grade printers, but the speed of them has gotten crazy. So like it would take something like, 30, 40 hours to do a print in the past. And now it's something that you can just knock out in like, an hour. And it's really like having like a replicator from Star Trek. There's this viscous pool of liquid that lasers pass over one layer at a time with the resolution of 25 microns, and that's the tolerance. And basically over time it moves this build plate up and down and creates something from nothing. And for me it's like it's such a trip. It's so cool. It's such a go ahead and it's such a piece of technology that like I've wanted my whole life.
Well, the crazy thing to me is how fast that they have sped it up now that you're talking. I mean, like, think about that. Think about, like, back in, like, I mean, we're talking, I'm 43. I probably used my first dot matrix printer at maybe 5 or 6 when
Right.
like, that's when they first had computers in schools, was around 83, 84, 85.
Right.
And they had those old, like, I mean,
Those are awesome, man.
I can still remember the sound that it would make, you know.
They're still around too. Believe it or not, they have a use.
Yeah. And but just we're talking that took so long just to get. And I mean, like personal printers. I don't know if this is like a joke of mine, but a personal printer you buy it one time at your house, it works like once and then it's done. It's fucked. So the fact that they have, you know, how many people like that are listening, or how many people that are out there have a printer at their house that they might have used like 10 times at the most, and then it's just sitting collecting dust in the corner of your
Yeah.
house office. But with 3D printers, I have a friend in town who uses them, and it took like 2 days to make something like replicating a little weapon for that you lost
Right.
off of one of your toys a long time ago. And now they're making fucking ghost guns. They're making like
Dude.
gun
Yeah.
parts to murder people.
You know, so just recently I read that in Houston, where I used to live, they did a gun buyback thing, and some dude, to make a point, showed up with 150 3D printed guns and got paid like $150 a pop for them, which must have been a cool payday. But yeah, he was basically trying to illustrate. I don't know. It's like maybe it was like 30 guns. It's like 30 guns, and he got $150 a piece for them. But whatever. Like I don't remember the numbers, but yeah, basically like it was to prove a point. It's like, hey, look, you can 3D print a gun, and like, yeah, you could also like machine one or something. You know, it's how you use the technology. It's
How much is a block of plastic that's like a square, like in your hand?
So like that's the thing, is like there's different types of printers. There's the filament printers, which use like a piece of filament, like almost like a piece of, like, think of it like a coil of fishing line. It's just a little bit thicker, and it extrudes it and just kind of poops it out over time and builds to whatever it's going to build. The other printers that use resin, they're actually using lasers and a polymer that is photosensitive, UV sensitive, and basically the resolution of the screen, they're basically like exposing one tiny bit of that layer at a time. And what's crazy is it's not necessarily like how big the thing or how wide the thing is that you're printing, it's how tall it is and how long it takes. Like I have some stuff over here like behind me that's printed in like
let's go through the history. Let's go through the history of it so far from what you've printed. Like,
so like check this thing out. I printed this.
Christ, this is.
It's like a sort of like a thing type monster, like John Carpenter inspired.
Sure.
And this thing took, I believe, 8 hours to print, and it's solid. But if I were to hollow it out, I could print it faster. It just would affect the structural integrity of it. And since I wanted it as a display piece, I knew it would probably need to be, especially these little pieces, probably have to be solid. But that's stuff that like I figured out over time, you know, because the first 3D printer that I ever got or messed with was back in 2009. It was one of the first commercial or first consumer grade ones. It was made by a company called Form Labs. And it was the Form 1 printer. And they did a Kickstarter. I totally like sweet talked my boss into giving me like $5,000 to fund this printer. And I think they used it like total of like maybe 10 times over the course of like 5 years. And it was just the technology existed, but the infrastructure of artists and creators and uses for 3D prints wasn't really there yet. So people, you know, you could get a printer and it's like, cool. If you knew how to model in 3D, that was awesome. If you could open up like, you know, soft homage and like, you know, model a gear, cool, good for you. But nobody else could do that. Now there's these communities of artists and creators who create stuff, and they create these 3D files. I download the digital asset, you know, and I have a library of digital assets that are mine that I paid for that exist only virtually until I create them. You know, it's like when I summon them into existence, and like it's kind of crazy because it opens up kind of a weird place where, like, you know, you could pirate a physical thing. Like I could 3D print a vinyl record, or it wouldn't be vinyl, but I could 3D print a record that would play on a record player. Like no problem. because
Wow.
because the resolution exceeds that of what the tone carrier of a record player is, and like you can
Huh.
actually, I know it's kind of crazy, right? You could do like a prototype record
But it
on your
wouldn't be
3D printer.
it wouldn't be vinyl, but it would still play on a record player.
Exactly, because it's just
It would
plastic,
be just be
and
it'd be resin.
right.
Well, that's pretty crazy. You think you think people are making boots like that, or does see? Here's the question. This is what brings it around to why it's interesting for the show. The things the technology that we have there, um, the possibilities of what you can make with this thing. There's
Mm-hmm.
the comments or people are asking, some of the stuff like, what do you think about having them in schools? And somebody
I think
says we have them in schools, like, but what
already,
if?
yeah, they're there.
So beyond like bootlegging records or whatever, like what if,
Mm-hmm.
what about if you have? I mean, there obviously there's going to be things that you don't want to let kids make, or what if, or like what?
That's the thing. Is like it's kind of a weird slope because if you think about it, if a tangible asset can be digitally obtained and then physically created, like if I wanted an action figure of somebody, like I could just either find that figure, or what's coming about now is like you could there's technology that uses the infrared on latest model phones that allow you to create very high resolution scans from your phone, man. You could go to like the toy store, take a scan of something, and then leave and go home and print it. It's like that's gonna, and then what's gonna happen is you'll see, because I mean, there's already stuff like people print their own Lego blocks and their Lego minifigs and stuff like that's easy. But people come up with things that what's cool about 3D printers is like it changes the equation. Previously when you're doing any kind of manufacturing or prototyping, you most likely you just like you were saying, you'd have like a block of plastic or a block of metal, and you'd mill it down to whatever you need. With 3D printers, you work the opposite way. You can create it from the ground up. So you could, for example, like I remember reading about it was an engine like intake manifold or something that they created, and they modeled it in 3D, and they actually built inside the 3D model like inner chambers that you couldn't really like build with a machine, and it hollowed it out to allow it to actually allow more air to go into it than a normal traditional design, and
So
it worked.
how big do they make these things? Like you could manufacture anything that exists basically if it was big enough, if you could produce it big enough, so you could replicate. I always think about shit like, all of a sudden, like they say, well, the economy's in the shitter. Like, well, people love to buy things that they can't have anymore. What if the companies, even if they weren't bootlegging them, what if like some car company said, Chevrolet was like, we're gonna make the fucking 1957 car or whatever. We're just gonna reprint the whole thing, and boom, they have them, and you know how people do with sneakers, they want those old like Air Jordans and stuff. So
right.
they're talking about, let me get this fucking 1957 Chevy, and they boom, like that's how do you get the car sales out of the shitter? Like you make this,
dude. I know that people are they're chasing that dream now, and like the 3D printers that exist for like industrial stuff, like they're huge. They can print like like a tire, like a car tire. They can print something very large volumetrically, and they can also print out of materials that like are completely not available to the consumer. Like they can do like magnesium and aluminum and stuff, which is like really cool. But there's like NASA has plans to put 3D printer type devices on the moon, on Mars, because they'll be able to build shit up there when they need it. It's like, if I need a wrench, well, I don't need to bring the wrench. I just need to bring the materials to make the wrench. I'll make it when I get there. And it's a crazy idea.
See, now that's what I'm talking about. Like also with these things, and I mean, it's not like you're fucking Tony Stark and you're going like fucking
no, they don't have like they don't have the replicator or whatever those things were called. Yeah.
However, if somebody can draw up on an iPad, they're like
Mm-hmm.
something that's never been built before, that is a piece that would bridge A to C, and they need that B piece that they don't have. There's a possibility that this thing could do it. And it's like, hey, it's like, I want to make something, but I'm not trying to replicate something that's already been. I want to make this thing, that this piece that I need. And
Yeah.
they draw it up. It's almost like making a cat, making a mold. Like if you're like a fucking artisan, like you need a piece,
Right.
like a buckle for this old shoe that doesn't exist, but you can create it, kind of like two different ones you saw. And so there's cats out there who are fucking geniuses who could build parts to spaceships that could get us further out into the galaxy that we've never been before.
What's
Are we
crazy
there
is
yet?
like
Are we there yet?
we're not quite there yet, but I mean that's the dream, you know. It's like we want to be able to create what our imaginations like can dream, you know, and like for a lot of people, like it's you know, artists and craftsmen, like these new technologies can seem kind of intimidating, but if you can, because like I came from a traditional art background, like I went to art school and I thought I was going to be an illustrator and shit, but like, you know, utilizing digital tools like changed the way that I created art, because it can go back, it can undo shit, you know. It's like amazing, you know. You can, when you work in 3D, you're working like, you know, in XYZ, and you're like, well, you know, how the hell can I, like, you know, optimize this object? And there's like, you know, there's tools that do that shit for you. It's like there's so many things that are uh like exciting for 3D printing right now, man. But I know that like the big thing is you're gonna see it like at Target and Walmart. You'll see it super affordable. You'll see like sub $100 printers and stuff, and they already exist. They're just there's still like a steep learning curve, and once that barrier of entry is lowered sufficiently and the prices around there, like I said, $100, that's where you'll see like super adoption.
That's wild. Somebody here says, first give A Paulson 247. First give robots a brain, then teach them how to rebuild, repair, and improve themselves. Fuck that shit. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. I don't trust robots. I don't trust robot dogs. I don't trust robot cops. I don't trust Terminators.
Well, I mean,
I don't trust RoboCop. Like, I wouldn't trust RoboCop. He's a fucking narc. Number one, he was kind of cool. I even like gave money to to build the statue in Detroit. Supposedly,
that's amazing.
I don't know if it got built. Nobody ever sent an email. You know, it was like when Kickstarter came out, like, you'll have your name on this thing, and you send $5, get your fucking name on the RoboCop statue. But then you start to think about it, you're like, no way, man. RoboCop was a robot built for cops. He was a cop.
He was a cop first. Yeah.
He was a cop first. The only thing that made him human still was the part of the brain that gave a shit about his family. He didn't give a shit about nobody else. He was a fucking cop. And yeah, AI is for sure getting scary. Absolutely, man. Well, Peter Weller was cool, but he was a fucking cop straight up.
This is what I think, dude. I think that we're gonna be just like with a natural form of intelligence. We have to be stewards of that, and we have to think of them as not like a tool, but as potential like peers and someone that we can like. Because if you use technology, if you're like you just shouting commands at your Google or your Alexa all day, like you're never saying please or thank you. That does lead you to a certain kind of like relationship with technology. You demand technology to be subservient. And like, if
you don't, then you're beholden to treating it the way that we treat humans. If you don't always treat robots like shit, then you have to give them respect. And if you give them respect, then they'll want it, and then they'll have. I think it's a bad road to. Even though I think everybody deserves respect, if you think about it like this, here's the situation. Let's say, boom, I'm 43. Let's say when I'm 50. I want to create a clone in my closet. I don't want him to be sentient. I want to have a clone closet thing that grows. He grows part of me so that when I'm 70, he'll be 20 and I can take my fucking brain and put it in that body, and then I can live 20 or 30 years longer than any human has lived before. But if we let him walk around and be a guy, then he's got his own memories, he's got his own life, and we can't, I'll have to respect him, and then I can't like use him as my clone. Like I can't use him as a replacement because he'll have his own life and shit. So if you're going to make robots and stuff and give them, if you're going to give them like rights, then you're basically asking for fucking Judgment Day, I think.
Well, so I just watched like Chappie last night, and like I really liked that story, and I really liked the movie as well.
That's Short Circuit 3, right?
I was gonna say pretty different from Short Circuit 2, where he gets to become a voting citizen at the end. But yeah, I mean, like that's the thing is like if you think about how that intelligence was like, you know, the genesis of it, how it was treated, like it was like a child, and like if you nurture that intelligence, you can, you know, create something that is like a, you know, like a maybe a, you know, more, you know, logical version of us. But I mean, if you trap it in there, man, you make it a tool. It's, you know, you gotta, I think you said it, man, you gotta use the tools use you.
That's true. A wise man told me that one time. You know, I guess there's two ways to look at it, because like you're offering something that is not humanity, and
Right.
I'm not against it, but if you do that, then you open it up to, you know, you can't use it as a tool, because then you're making it basically a slave. If it's not going to be a robot and it's not going to be a tool, if a clone is going to be just a clone and have its own regular humanity, then it can't be subservient. It has to have its own shit. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having robots do your bidding and make them do shit for you. It's just like having a fucking lawnmower or whatever.
But that's the thing. It's like if it's fine to have the robot do the work for you, but if the robot also has to sit there and contemplate its meaningless existence, like that's where it gets a little scary. It's like we don't give it that intelligence, because then it can sit there and be depressed. You know?
No, that's what I'm saying. Like, don't make it smart enough to rebuild itself, because if it does, then it's, I don't know. I don't like AI. I don't trust it. I don't trust cops or robot cops or robots or robot dogs, because robots, number one, are programmed by humans, and they're programmed to do shit. And robot dogs are programmed to do shit for cops. And I bet you they hunt down people on the fucking borders and shit like that.
Oh, dude, it's coming.
I've already seen videos of it, and I'm completely against it.
Yeah, the Boston Dynamics robot, they just stuck a gun on there. Like, that didn't take much.
What? Yeah, what? Like, that should be completely insane and illegal. Like, why would you want, not only why would you want to do that to harm others, but why would you want to give a gun to a robot who could also completely turn on you and harm you? Haven't you watched any science fiction whatsoever? Like, the stories are there. They might be made up, but the possibility is right there in front of you that this thing could, I mean, like someone just said it. What about the fucking chess robot that pinched the kid's fucking finger off the other day?
That's how it starts, man.
Yeah. He's just seeing what he can get away with. He pinched it. He's like, I'm already better than this fucking thing. I can already beat this thing. I can beat it. I never even was in a womb, and I can beat it. So why not just?
Well, you know, like we were messing around with Dolly, you know, generating art, and it's like, it's creepy, and it's only going to get better at it, and it's only going to, like, there's going to be the equivalent of Dolly. There's going to be that for video, where you type in a description and it makes the video. It'll be short at first, and then it'll increase longer, and then it'll be like where you can do weird combinations of things. You're like, I want to see what the Godfather would be like if you know, Eddie Murphy was the lead. You know, yeah. it would create that, and it would be a, you know, sometimes when you combine elements that don't go together, they don't taste good. You know, it's like steak cake. You know, I want a steak and I want a cake. Well, you can't have both, man. They don't work together.
No, not in Not in. I mean, you can make some kinds of things work with that. That's making me think about things, but no, they don't necessarily go together. I'm with you. But I mean, yeah, I'm thinking about a steak cake now. But no,
Some of
I
my
see what
boss
you're.
used to say. I really like the phrase because it's just two things that just would you'd never want to combine them. And if you were actually able to do it, you would just be really disappointed with the results.
The Dolly format was really great, except for it. It has all these questions. It's like, okay, it can create these things, but you as a person came up with what to put inside of it. So
Right.
who made the art? Were you responsible at all for the art? I mean, you came up with these funny things to put inside of it. And you know what I mean? Like some people would make some and they'd be like, this didn't come out so good. And sometimes you'd come up with some crazy ones. Like I said, I maybe came up with, let's say, 10 out of 100 that
Yeah.
worked. Some of them didn't work at all. I was trying to come up with like to catch a predator, and I wanted it to be to catch the predator, but it would just have guys like fishing or whatever. And so it didn't like always work, but sometimes it would. And I think it's, like you said, it's all about, those are like it. I was trying to decide as it went how many ever, because as you know, if you played with Dolly, different things it would be like, we're too fucking overloaded. You gotta wait.
Right.
You,
Right.
you gotta wait. You gotta wait because thousands and thousands of people were playing with it. I was wondering if it was learning as it went.
Absolutely, yeah. The model is ever evolving, and that's the thing is they're taking that information, they're you know parsing through it, and they're figuring out what's relevant and how they can repurpose it. And that's what's crazy. Is like I remember that another AI project. It was called Talk to Transformer, and it was using the Open AI model, and you could give it like some text, and then it would extrapolate and fill in the rest, and it was super creepy how like I started sentence like I walked to the library and it was like, and then it would finish a paragraph for it, and like it, or you say I opened a book about automotive design, and it would just finish the paragraph for you, and it would actually provide like relevant information. And like what was crazy is you could use it to generate like news headlines, give it just a little bit of information, and it would generate a coherent thought that sounded relatively human, but you definitely knew it wasn't sentient. It wasn't like a real person, but
Right.
it was like up there in that area where it was kind of creepy, like
I
that
saw one
uncanny
that
valley.
I saw a writer one that was like a prompt for writing, where it was almost like Mad Libs, where you put
Right.
in two or three things and it would come up with a whole paragraph that you could that you could start a story with. Like it was almost like a Mad Lib short story AI thing
Right.
where you could put in a couple prompts and it would start you off with your shit. And it was pretty nuts. And I thought that was pretty great. And that was quite, maybe a year before Dolly comes along.
Yeah.
But let's talk about that. Let's see. You said you were. How did you get involved with the Dolly program? You.
So yeah, like I signed up for it like wait because I was actually a member of the whatever the Open AI like discussion groups, and they have a Discord and some other stuff. And I was a member of their group when they released the open source version of the first Dolly, which became like the one that you and I were messing around with
Dolly
that
Mini?
generation. Yeah, Dolly Mini, and then Dolly 2 is what they've learned from Dolly Mini, and then it's a new algorithm, and it's even more accurate and creepy, but it can also do like a higher, like almost like a higher like order of magnitude as far as like realism and like accuracy. And it's like you can specify like what type of lens you're viewing this thing, like a 35 millimeter macro photo of a shrimp riding a bicycle playing a banjo. Like it would generate that, and it would be accurate, and it would be creepy.
So is Dolly 2 available online to like play with, like Dolly Mini
Yeah,
was?
you have to sign up for it, and
Uh,
it's like they give you some credits for free, and then you can. It's like they charge you for access to mess with the AI because you're actually using computational time from their supercomputer or whatever. It's probably like a big node of several computers. But the way that it can generate like nuances and change the lighting, change the rendering, change the artistic approach. Like an impressionist drawing, a realistic rendering. I was like, Bob Ross painting. It'll do that, and because there's enough of it out there, and it's like that's the thing is like where there will be like completely AI generated content where there's no human involved, and that's going to be extra weird because it's going to be an echo of us because it learned from us. It analyzed all the images and search queries and YouTube videos and all the YouTube comments, and then that's what AI is going to be. It's like whatever we left
the internet.
It's kind of scary, man. Like if you think about it, because the cross section of it all includes the best and the worst. It's like the saving puppies and eating puppies. It's all there.
Yeah, so this thing that we're building that like let's take the concept of I know that I don't want to be like, oh, they're just talking about comic book shit, but let's take the concept of Ultron, like some kind of thing that is AI that takes a 3D printer, it builds itself an indestructible body, but has all the knowledge of the internet, of like things that it like. Someone says information scraping. Denim sombrero.
Exactly.
It scrapes what it finds relevant or what it. That's the thing. That's the scariest part of all of it. Always has been. Is where's the end? Where does its morals?
Well, it chooses.
Lie?
It chooses.
Yeah. So that's the thing. Is like if we're building it and there is no limits to put what you put on it, where can it? Where does it go? How do you keep it from doing what? I mean, that's literally the fucking story of Terminator. There's
no rails. There's no safety guards right now because we're allowing it to, sort of like, manifest itself as a byproduct of the things that we're creating. Like people are obviously there are definitely people who are trying to create some kind of AI who definitely would love to have some kind of military AI as well. Like those people are going to do it whether we like it or not. But there's going to be an emergent intelligence that arises from our technology, and that's going to be the real AI because it won't be a thing that we're we're manufacturing. It'll be a thing that arose, which is sort of like life. Life arose spontaneously from random shit. Our random shit is now is technology and the internet. And what's going to arise from it is probably going to be fucking Ultron.
We got some comments coming in here. Denim Sombrero says the depth of the scrape is the surface which can then populate its own scraping content.
Yeah,
I'm with it.
It's building itself a bigger shovel to dig more every time.
SnapP1 says AI deals normalized society. Does that mean those living and creating outside that influence will have the eventual advantage? I mean,
no, they will be consumed by it. And to give you an example, man, there was some people weaponized lawsuits several years ago. The guys that brought down Gawker, you remember that? Yeah. They did it with AI. They had an AI system analyze millions of lawsuits that were filed against the Gawker Media Corporation, and then it analyzed and extrapolated whether or not those would go to jury and whether they could possibly get an award. And then they categorized all of those, and then they pressed all of those in one day. And it just completely imploded the company. They could not possibly respond. And I don't understand why people don't do that more. You could weaponize lawsuits against oil companies easily, against gun manufacturers, against automotive manufacturers,
against
anyone.
Legislators,
against
crooked politicians.
And the AI would fight and find every possible way to win because that's what it does. It's just going to do the math. It's going to do the math of law, which is gross, but is totally a thing.
Wow. That's kind of wild to think about. And well, I mean, there you go. You're like we're talking about laws, but
Yeah,
what I think Snap P might be getting at is that this is normalized society. We're talking about civilized, normalized society when you're talking about laws. If there's someone who's outside of that advantage, we're talking about Ultron versus fucking Grizzly Adams.
exactly. And
A
it's,
group of people who aren't uh, who aren't a part of that. Is there something that could defeat it that's so remote and off the grid? I mean, my wife
well, that's the
watches
thing.
these
Yeah,
videos.
yeah.
My wife watches these videos of these hobbit. They look like hobbits. They're not hobbits, but the guy I watched long enough for the guy to refer to himself as a hobbit. I don't know if he's from Australia or where, but he built like he had a commune on his own land. He built it out of shit that was like thrown away or very cheap and he built everything, built the house, built the farm, built the bathroom, built like his own studio, like, and it was like incredible how he learned to do all this. Like he like watched the seasons, and for 7 months out of the year, water would come down, and he
Right,
hooked up a
yeah.
system where he had sun. He would collect the solar, and he also collected hydroelectric to run everything.
Nice.
Are there people out there who after all of a sudden the guys, everybody watching this gets zapped, like we're fucking fucked. But there's cats out there who don't even deal with this shit. I mean, he must deal with it though because he's making fucking YouTube videos, so
Exactly.
he's not that far off the grid, if you know
Dude,
what I mean.
you should check out this guy. His name was Dick Pernacki, and he was a retired engineer for Bell Labs.
Making
Um,
notes.
he retired, I want to say, in the probably 80s. And there's it's a couple of nature documentaries. I have them like I have like VHS rips of them or something. They're super old, but basically he went to Alaska, and he basically was like the Grizzly Adams version of a 3D printer. He brought the metal parts of the tools, but not the wooden parts, and then he would create the hatchet handle and the hammer handle and everything there on site with the wood. And he over the course of several winters built this log cabin that is like now a nationally recognized like historic site as well. And as I said, his name was Dick Pernacki, and he built all this stuff. Like he was an he was a Bell Labs engineer, so like he engineered this house and did it out of wood. And I mean, he even had like a locking mechanism on his door that was all wood. And like, because of the permafrost, he could keep food in the ground cold.
Right.
And like all those skills, like that shit that he taught himself and decided to do, and just say goodbye to like modern society and go do these things.
Well, I've
But
seen
like,
those. There's like a guy, like late at night on regular television.
mhm.
Maybe I saw it on like Hulu or something, or maybe I saw it on, how Instagram will give you ads. Somewhere I saw an ad for a guy and a lady who are doing old school, like it's like a book that they sell. It's like the old ways. Like
Mhm.
get this book that'll teach you the old ways, how to make buttermilk, how to like how to make cheesecloth galls for when you cut your arm open, and how to fucking make how to store pork through the winter, and shit like that, like so you won't
Right.
die, like how to like make medicine out of wheat and shit that grows in your garden or in your yard. Like there's a guy who sells a book like that. It's like one step beyond home remedies. It's the things that we've forgotten. Things that we've forgotten from the 1700s, the way they used to live. It's easy. You have all the shit in your house. You're just not doing it because you don't know how. Buy my book, like
Right.
one of
Yeah.
those guys. But that's the kind of thing that to me, that would hook
You know,
me. I'm in. Like there's no way I'm gonna like live completely off the fucking grid at this point. I
well,
mean,
what one of my favorite sci-fi stories has like something like sort of related to that. Like one of my favorite sci-fi books is this The Mote in God's Eye. I don't know if you ever read it. Larry Nevin, and there's a basically like through the course of the story, like humanity like never found aliens, never found any kind of intelligent life throughout the universe. And then they did one day. And what made the aliens like extra weird and interesting to me was they experienced these like weird population boom and busts where they actually had like a biological imperative to breed or they would die. And so they would basically, their numbers would increase out of control
Like
until
Republicans.
right, until the population got so big that that the planet could no longer sustain it, and then it would descend into barbarism and chaos, and it was a cycle. The aliens did this over and over and over again. So what they did was they built like this massive like structure that was like left alone and no one jacked with it, and it kept all the knowledge that they accumulated throughout the years, so that when they were wiped out and taken back to the Stone Age, they could go to this place and relearn all the things and get back to where they need to go a little bit faster. It was super cool, but it was like, you know, this is how it works. We just, you know, we kill each other.
Larry Niven, The Moat in God's Eye. I'm going to check that out.
Yeah, so Chuck, my favorite book, man.
Tell everybody who's listening here, what when we first met, you were working on video games, right? You were working.
That's true. Yeah.
You still work on those?
No, I don't work for the video game publisher anymore, and those were some fun times, man. And I got to do some shit that, you know, most people never ever get the opportunity to do, and I was really like fortunate, and it was cool. That game, the game that I worked on was called Grey Goo. It was a PC strategy game. It came out in 2015, and I got to work on the narrative design and story building and the lore for the universe that the one of these aliens in the game, they actually spoke a alien language that we hired a linguist and a mathematician to create, and I helped to like create this language. Man, it was crazy, dude. I got to work with Weta Workshop, the guys that did Lord of the Rings, District 9, and Chappie, and all those guys. Like, those guys designed the robot in the game. Like, they did the concept art. Like, I got to sit in those creative meetings with Weta Workshop, which is like super intimidating because those guys are like the best at everything, and like, it was fun, man. I really enjoyed, like, I'm glad I got to make video games, but also I'm kind of glad I'm not in that area anymore, because like it was like unstable and kind of stressful. I'm pretty happy where I'm at now, man.
Right. Well, I mean, like, I didn't mean to bring up bad stuff.
Oh no, it's not bad stuff, dude.
It's crazy how, like, let me just ask you, the language that they made up, was it only written or was it spoken as well?
It was written and spoken, and it was called Usandu, and we actually based it on, I believe, it was some tribal, the Maori or something. I can't remember exactly where we got inspiration from, but we decided when we built that language, like, it had to be real, it had to have like real roots and feel real. So like we created, to make it work extra hard for ourselves, we created 2 languages, and then we traced their evolution over time, and those languages merged together to form a Creole that the aliens ended up speaking in the game. So like, the reason we did that is because, like, in English, you know, there's lots of things in English that come from other languages and other cultures, and like, because of that, there's weird rules. Like, English is strange. So there's oddities and things that like don't make sense in the English language. So we had to include, you know, inconsistencies and errors and oddities in this alien language that they spoke, as well as the written language. And we were actually going to do like a symbol based writing structure or something, but we never ended up chasing that down. And it was like, who the hell's going to, like, you know, read the it's going to pass by a screen. Like, yeah. It's like, yeah, we're already throwing so much like damn interesting shit at this. Like, it's, you know, it's more than you can really handle anyway. So
yeah, no, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Like, I mean, because, I mean, shit, man. Like, it's very cool, but I see, like, why would anybody take the time to learn it and look at it and read it? I mean, it would be cool as hell if you were like, when you're a kid, you're like, I want to make up my own fucking language so nobody can read it. You know what I mean?
And growing up, like, I had my own role playing game that like me and my friends played, and I wrote, and like I was able to like steal from, like, you know, 30 years of like really solid ideas, like just the good stuff. And they had no idea. They had no idea I was like poaching it off from my role playing game. But yeah,
Nice.
it's like every like core big concept. I totally jacked that. Like
So Darren the Lich or the like lichen maybe it says it was attached to the tattoos they had on their bodies. This
that's right,
guy.
Darren. Yeah, I worked with him, man.
Okay,
He
cool,
worked
cool. I was like,
he
shit,
worked
man, is this motherfucker like
he's a Grey Goo fan from the way back.
yeah. I didn't know. I mean, who knows? You never know.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
really cool.
Yeah, they had like they covered their bodies in tattoos, and the tattoos were chronicles of their stories and adventures that
I mean,
that
makes
made it their
sense.
lives, right? And they didn't. They we also made some rules like their their brains work differently than ours. So like we use computers as like they're like the crutch to help us do like weird computational things that our brains like don't do well. Like uh, orbital dynamics or computational like data. Like that's really not what humans are super good at, but computers are really good at it. So we built computers to bridge that gap in our thought process, or we couldn't coming up with ourselves. These aliens, their brains already did that shit. They would they could the way that like whenever you throw or catch a ball, you're actually calculating all kinds of trajectory and math instantly in your head, and that's because those are the physics that we deal with, and we can totally throw a ball. But if you're like, how do I, achieve escape velocity? Like that's not something that's apparently obvious. You got to like do some math to figure that shit out. And that's the kind of math that the aliens did normally. They would just totally do that. So they didn't actually have a bunch of computers. Their technology was really, it sort of bridged that gap that they had, which was a different gap than humanity. So like their technology and the way that they use it was like, it was pretty novel, and it was like like I said, I stole from some pretty good ideas that I like polished over time.
Sure, sure. I mean, as you should, because sometimes whether you're an artist or a poet or a writer or whatever, you have years and years worth of stuff, and you just sit on them. A lot of times, you just end up sitting on them, and you go, man, why haven't I ever done anything with it? It just collects dust, as
Yeah,
like as Philip Dick would call. It just turns into kipple.
and that's the thing is like I knew lots of people have write stories and comes up in games and shit like themselves. Like I was very fortunate to be able to have mine attached to like a multi-million-dollar endeavor, like because it's theirs. It's there for fucking ever now. Like and
Yeah.
like and you know I'd like to think that generations from now, maybe someone will see it and be like, "Oh, that's cool," or "That guy's an asshole." That's all cool.
Yeah.
Because then they're talking about me years from now. That's cool.
Well, so let's talk about you were talking about digital assets. We were talking about
Yeah,
3D printers. We were talking about the beginnings and how it started out with little things. Where do you think it's going from there? Like, is
you're
it going
gonna
to end up?
see.
Is it going to still be hobbies? I mean, like you said, they're going to Walmarts. Is it going to be a thing for hobbyists, or is it going to be something that eventually
It's
changes
it's
how we do everything? Like, are they
you're
going to have what's a movie? I'm thinking of a movie where everybody went in, or maybe wasn't a movie, it was a show or something where they go and they go, I need make me. They called it a maker. What was that on? Like, and they just go over and they get a thing and it makes it. Maybe it's the comic Saga. I can't think of it, but they have
oh yeah,
makers
that
and
was
they need
Saga. I
something and they
remember that.
just say they
Well,
go,
yeah, that's the dream, man. Because what 3D printing is doing, regardless of which technology it's using, like it's just laying down uh, material, and that material can change. Like you could theoretically print a organ, because if you could get down to enough resolution, you're just printing atoms, just putting them where they're supposed to be, and like that's some, as far as like when it reaches ubiquity, like when it's going to be something that everybody has, like because you just like you said earlier, man. Some people have printers, some people don't. Some people like couldn't print a shipping label if their life depended on it, and like that's because they don't need a printer. Like when do you use a printer? Very rarely. Like I remember, using like MapQuest and shit. Like there's just things you don't use a printer for anymore, man. And like, do people need them at all? Well, they're super cheap. there, and that's the thing is like the technology reached that ubiquity to where like you can get a $40 printer, like, and then it'll break in a week.
Yeah.
But like there will be 3D printers that'll fill that niche. But what's going to happen is there's got to be a thing that corresponds to the technology, a driving point, something that pushes it along. Like for I think there'll be like food-based 3D printers, and what'll be weird is you'll be able to like order food and it'll print it, but there'll be people like me who will be pirating their food, and like
Right.
I'll be able to print like Michelin star food for free. Ha. It's like
You said organs. I was thinking about like a piano for a second, but then but dude, I mean, shit, man. If they can make, obviously this whole time we've been talking about, or I've in the background been paying attention to articles where they grew an ear on a fucking rat. They grew like who knows, like, oh yeah, they cloned a sheep.
So
Well,
what they
okay.
can do is they can use the 3D printer to print the lattice work that the cells grow onto. And they actually print it out of what is basically like cartilage. They print cartilage and then they grow tissue over that little like cage that they printed.
Huh.
And that's how they're doing it now. But that's just an incremental technology. This is the dot matrix printer right now.
So
Like
they can rebuild your knee by just building you the knee part and then growing the fucking meat over the top of it. Because
yeah, exactly.
now they can grow meat apparently. Like I want a pepperoni tree myself.
Well, that's the what's crazy is they'll be able to your biometric signature will include your DNA. It'll just, if you have a problem, like they'll clone your blood. There's no need to have donated blood. They'll just clone that. And there's no reason to have like donated organs. Or even right now, they're really excited because they're using, I think it's like a xenomorphic transplantation, where they're taking animal organs and putting them in people after they've genetically engineered the organs to exist in people. But that's just a stopgap. This is a technology that's bridging technologies, right? Because right now we can't grow human organs, so we'll genetically engineer them inside pigs. Well, in 5 or 10 years, like we'll be able to grow organs, and it'll be super expensive and weird. But in 25 years, that'll be the normal treatment. Just like someone go gets an elective surgery like LASIK or something. You're like, yeah, you just go get like
Exactly.
new organs.
Okay. So Darren says the maker from Transmetropolitan, and that was what it was. That's Transmetropolitan.
Yeah.
Going back reading that, like now that I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, I gave my dad a kidney, and what if I didn't have to do that? What if he could have just printed himself a kidney? What if they could have printed him one up? I mean, I used to know the numbers. It's been 14 years since that happened, so I can't think of like how long ago, or I can't think exactly how many people are on the list every year that die waiting for one of those. But you're right. They will be able to just print. I mean, it's coming.
Yep.
You think about
it's coming, dude.
Transmetropolitan was such a great like future thinking book because it talked about, we have, not only do we have like 3D printers, which are like the makers, we have the trans movement in society and how it's come to the forefront, like beyond LGBTQ. Like the trans movement is huge now, and they talked about the trans movement in that as in like wanting to be part alien, where like they had human alien hybrids and all this stuff. But I mean, we're not talking about Alex Jones conspiracies. When you're talking about 3D printing knees or kidneys or lungs,
people are gonna be into a weird extra level of body modification and customization. Like there's no reason you want gills, you want eyes that can see the fucking ultraviolet spectrum, go for it.
That because that's beyond like what you want, or sorry, beyond what you need, beyond the threshold of what you need. I need a kidney, or like I need a blood transfusion, or I can't see out of my eyes now. I need new eyes. Beyond what you need is what they want. And when you get past what you need to what you want, there's no limitations of what some person
Well,
wants. And I can't call it weird because I want something, and what I want, one man's trash is another man's treasure. You know what I mean? Like,
so what's crazy is like, if you give your brain new input, it'll make sense of that. And but what I mean by that is like, you'll be able to add new senses. Like we know what our senses now are because that's pretty much how like, we make sense of the world is, our consciousness is this collective amalgamation of all the sensory input we have. Well, you can add new input and you can add all kinds of weird shit that you can like, it's hard to even get your head around. Like there's a doctor in Houston. I think he was in Houston. His name was David Engelman. He had a show on PBS called The Brain, and he did an experiment where they put on this harness, this chest harness thing, and it was like a whole vest thing. And what it would do is it would like, as sound input was received by the device, it would correspond and put pressure points on their chest and back. So every time he experienced sound, there'd be a corresponding pressure input on his chest and back. Over time, his brain began to make sense of that information as additional layer of sound. So he began to feel sound. And like, it was only when he wore this vest, he would feel, he'd have a new sensory input, and that was a tactile version of sound. And over time, he was able to differentiate different sounds and explain and say like, oh, this is, this sound felt like this, and other sounds felt like this, and some sounds were sharp and blocky, other sounds were smooth, and like it was super weird, but it just kind of underscores the point. Like you can give any kind of sensory input, and your brain will make sense of it, as long as it corresponds to something that exists in the real fucking world for your brain to make sense of. Right. Like you could have an input in your brain that made you feel something when the stock market went up or went down, and you'd have a weird sixth sense on the stock market. I mean, that's just one. Or like I don't think I can sense barometric pressure, but no reason I couldn't.
Right. I'm gonna fix my sense of smell because I can't smell anything. I can't even hardly breathe out of my nose. So man. I want to be able to. I mean, I can smell.
You get the robot nose.
I can smell, but it's always stuffed up. I'm trying to unstuff my nose. You know what I mean? Whenever they get those new noses, I'm gonna grow a nose. I'm gonna grow a nose on a fucking rat's back.
Well, dude, what's in 50 years there'll be like a whole new world of like sports and athleticism where people there'll be people who are purists who are like testing for doping and genetic modification, and then there'll be people who are like, no, I want mutant league football, and they're gonna have that. Like
I want motherfuckers who do backflips when they dunk in the basketball. I want 20-foot goals.
I want centaur football.
I want 20-foot high basketball goals. And I want guys who can still dunk.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, we genetically engineer them so that they're like 19 feet tall, and that would be a spectacle in itself.
Or they have Inspector Gadget spring legs.
But, what was that show on Netflix, Altered Carbon, where they could like move their consciousness in between bodies?
I never made it through that. I tried to watch it, but man, I fucking passed out every time I turned it on. It was
it's fucking bleak, dude.
It's bleak, but it's also one of those ones where you really got to be awake to do it because it's just like there's some shit to get through. You're just like,
I enjoyed it, but it was like it's big. It's like a magical thing because they never really like explain the technology or how they got there. They just, oh yeah, we got this fucking technology. And they have everyone's downloading onto these discs and stuff. And I'm like, it's just,
I'll watch it. I want to watch it.
It's all right.
There's so much technology in sci-fi that you never know what. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, I think the ultimate like end of this conversation was where it was getting to where making the jump between technology and science and science fiction, like what is going to happen is the most interesting part to me, because because there are those things that are coming to me, like the what ifs. Like, shit, man, it's not like what if a fucking robot cop comes to get me. No, it's what if technology gets so cool that instead of 5,000 people, or let's say out of 5,000 people who need a kidney,
Yeah.
like 700 of them don't die this year because they got a kidney. You know what I mean? That's what I'm talking about. Like, if we
Yeah.
can get that technology to the forefront of like
Well,
of pulling
that's
something out of the ether, like, and keep the RoboCops away from us, then we're
that's
gonna be fucking
actually
doing good.
my dream for technology and science and research and development has always been some kind of fucking magical platform that allows everyone to collaborate if they want to. Because you could have a research team in another country working on a material science engineering project that would totally solve all the problems of your space elevator or whatever the hell you're working on, but you don't know because you don't know what the hell that team's doing because they're toiling in obscurity. And what would be awesome is for just, I mean, like I have a group chat at work, man. I want a group chat with humanity, and but for science, because a group chat for humanity might end up like 4chan, and I don't really want that.
Or Twitter, yeah.
But I mean, just for like the science, where you can share and collaborate on your results and release them open source. Like that's what I want, because then you can have people who come up with genetically engineered organs or all like artificial organs that do the stuff, and it's like that's what I want. It's like I want us to kind of like remember we're all on the same team, man.
I like that. Well, let's wrap it up there. Do
Yeah,
you have
dude.
anything? You have anything you want to plug? Anything that people should check out, or anything that people
Check
give?
check out robotdoom. That's where I post my art and my stuff I'm working on. And yeah, man, I'm not looking for anybody's money or anything.
No, we'll post it because it's very interesting stuff, and we'll post it in there for everybody to. Says Stone Age Skills, who's going to be our guest tomorrow night, is
Oh, sweet.
Stony Sills says, "Hear me out. A 3D printer that ghosts can manipulate." I mean, if you could tether this to the spiritual world, then you would definitely have a technology on your hand that somebody would want to exploit, and that's real. Thank you so much, Chuck Bird. Thank you very much for being our
Thanks,
guest.
man. It was
Everybody,
awesome.
tune in tomorrow. Here's the possibility tomorrow. I am going to go see Rage Against the Machine and Run the Jewels in DC. So when I do this show tomorrow, I may be talking from a car, driving from DC to New York, because I got to pick up a bunch of stuff. So tomorrow night with Stone Age Skills, his name is Stony Sills. We'll talk then. And Chuck Bird, thank you for being a fucking
Awesome.
great guy, and it's great to catch up with you. And I'll talk
It
to
was
you again
great, man.
soon. Thanks
All right, take
everybody
it
for
easy,
tuning
everybody.
in. We'll see you again tomorrow. Peace.